Now Michael Logue. I don't think it'd be the military if there wasn't rain involved. I am honored to be your guest at your annual Tip City Memorial Day celebration. As we join together this year, I must speak to the significance of 2015. 2015 is the 50th anniversary of combat operations in Vietnam and the 10th anniversary of combat operations in Al Anbar Province, Iraq, for my unit, Lima Company 325 of Columbus, Ohio. Although these combat operations are separated by half a century, they are similar in many ways. I will speak to the lasting effect of losing a loved one. That is a void which generations of families know too well. American families have lost fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. We come here today, Memorial Day, to remember the people who have died while serving in the armed forces. Those men and women who answered the call to duty and gave it all because they are America's family. I've seen this loss firsthand. It was 2005, Al Anbar Province, Iraq. I was a young 19-year-old that withdrew from college and just barely caught up to Lima Company 2 weeks before entering Iraq. We never knew exactly where or what we would be doing, but we thought our underfunded equipment budget would land us somewhere on an air base in the middle of the desert with nothing but sand to see. Little to my knowledge, my unit would earn the responsibility of becoming the focus of effort in the Al Anbar province, as we quickly became more combat experienced than any other unit, active duty or reserve, in the region for that time. Lima Company was roughly 180 men strong, and we would send over 150 enemy insurgents to Abu Ghraib prison, kill over 200 enemy insurgents, and increase voter turnout from 10% to 70% during our 7-month combat operation. It did not come without a price, as we were also one of the hardest hit units in the Iraq War, and a unit that was directly responsible for the Department of Defense to increase funding for explosive resistant vehicles, a war-winning strategic turning point between 2005 and 2007. For Lima Company, we would have 30% of our unit killed or wounded, 23 in our company, and a total of 49 for our battalion, the battalion strength of about 900 men. Thoughts of landing on a cushy Air Force base, surrounded by sand as far as the eye could see, faded as we unloaded hundreds of pounds of gear down 200 flights of stairs deep into Haditha Dam. This dam was not constructed with the intent of housing a few companies of Marines. Living conditions were poor. It was built by the Russians. Fortunately for us, we would not be inside the wire for long. We had an operational tempo and responsibility much larger than ourselves. That first week, we set up our handed down gear and equipment for our first mission. Our vehicle was a first generation Humvee with some bolted on steel. It was a little more heavy duty than an overloaded Nissan pickup truck. At least most Nissan trucks in Iraq had a machine gun mount. However, I felt lucky to be in an open bed Humvee, as opposed to the aluminum assault amphibious vehicles, commonly called the AAV. The AAV was a structure designed to float with bolted on armor on the left and right sides. It has an aluminum underbelly, very susceptible to mine or IED blasts, and an aluminum door ramp, which would serve like a hot knife and butter to an RPG. Essentially, the AAV made you feel like a large, soft target. It was not the best vehicle for the mission, but using what we had available, we packed sandbags and extra flak blankets beneath our butts of that old Humvee, and we were ready to roll. My platoon sergeant had ordered swing arm machine gun mounts. Finally, my machine gunner would have something to mount our 240 Golf on, and our old Humvee began to adapt and come to an aggressive life. We gave the old Humvees nicknames like Batmobile and Black Betty. We soon learned the swing arm was a terrible platform to shoot from, but it allowed us a more aggressive posture and a look that supports your command presence. Command presence naturally receives respect and deters probing attacks. It did just that, as we later found out through our human intelligence. Out beyond the wire for the first time, I thought of my training, and it was humorous. Everything around me was a potential hazard or explosive. Looking back, I think that must be how a newborn feels when opening its eyes to the world for their first time. And Al-Anbar province, nicknamed the Wild Wild West, was our new world. Your head became a swivel, double-taking every trash pile, every multi-story building, and every alleyway full of unfriendly faces. The only real training to prepare someone for this operation was the value of having the courage to walk tall, discipline to be detailed, and endurance to keep yourself moving once the battery was drained from the constant battle rhythms. The first main street in Iraq I had the joy of patrolling through, a rocket-propelled grenade went streaming beside my head. It had come from behind, the enemy had shot and ran. I think of it as my "Welcome to Iraq, yes, people here really want to kill you" moment. Another 2 feet to the right or a pause in our patrol, and my known near-death experience list would never have grown to 9 more similar experiences. At this time of the war, remote detonated IEDs and suicide bombers were becoming primary methods of attack, and they set the environment for an ambush. Both methods are effective on the human psyche, and when the timing is right, they create catastrophic vehicle kills, as our supply chain was not producing blast-proof vehicles to adequately defend against the IEDs. With sandbags and flak jackets beneath us, we pressed on because, as many of you know, you don't go to war with what you want, you go to war with what you have. Our early combat engagements won a media nickname at home of Lucky Lima, a reserve company. Many of our Marines were centralized around Ohio, and that gave the newspapers and community a group to follow and cheer for. Many of our Marines were great assets to the Ohio community, but their absence was noticed at the local schools, fire, and police stations. Unfortunately, that nickname came to an end just after Mother's Day 2005. I can't possibly tell the story of all of our fallen here and now. I will tell you of my few times in an AAV. We are on the Syrian border on May 11th. I was one of what felt like 20 Marines crammed into a porta-john. But our seats were ammo cans of explosive ordnances, our knees interlocked, and we sat shoulder to shoulder, heads resting on each other or on a rifle muzzle. My friend Mike and Carl were sitting across from me. Our vehicle stopped to link up with another of our platoons. When I got the word to move myself and our team off and onto the next vehicle in line to be closer to our platoon commander, as we were going to be setting up mortars for our next stop. Mortars are a classic defensive position. I jumped off Mike and Carl's AAV and hopped up on the top of the next AAV for Overwatch. As we began to roll to our next position, 30 seconds passed, and boom. My world was shaken. All I saw were Marines in the open and a fireball where Mike and Carl's AAV should be. We sped ahead, still unsure what had happened, my mind trying to make sense of what it just saw. Once the ramp dropped and we heard gunfire and explosions, I expected the ambush. We were in an open field surrounded by the city. The gunfire and explosions were ordnance cooking off. No enemy around to fight. After surveying the damage, we began a casualty collection point as we began treating Marines for shock and shrapnel wounds and severe burns. 6 Marines were killed in the IED blast. My friend Mike was blown 30 yards out into the field with widespread shrapnel wounds, and Carl would receive severe burns to his hands and face. Both Mike and Carl dusted off in the helicopter and began a trip back home to the U.S. as the AAV burned. June and July were busy months, but I must push into August. August 1st, a team of our attached snipers were overrun. 6 Marines killed in total. They were not given the overhead support they needed, and the officers that were in charge would never lead Marines in combat again. We were amped up and ready to go. We got to the site, 1 Marine was missing. All the horrible thoughts of him becoming a trophy to be presented through town on a spike went through our minds. We pushed out south to hold a bridge. Within seconds, mortar rounds struck the center of our position. Shrapnel flew all around us. We moved our machine gun to the roof and engaged targets across the river. Fortunately, with our holding of the bridge and heavy machine gun fire support, with two boat gunships, a team of Marines recovered the sniper's body from across the Euphrates River. August 3rd, we now launched into Operation Quick Strike. Lima Company pushed southwest, while other units assisted and pushed northeast. We methodically were closing on the insurgents with plans to destroy them from all sides. As we rolled down the road, boom, our world shook. An AAV with 15 Marines inside were just blown apart on a piece of the road. We had just crossed that road. Why didn't anyone see the IED buried under the roadway? The thoughts raced through my mind. My world was shattered. Within the day's end, we killed the insurgents responsible for the attacks, remembered our friends we had lost, all 15 of them that day. This is just my perception, my small story of our Lima Company story. Today is Memorial Day, a day to honor warriors from the Civil War to the greatest generation of World War II, to the 58,253 killed in Vietnam, and to those service members you hold close in your hearts. I can't help but think of how many family members that must feel the ripple of anguish from the loss of those lives. Thank you for your sacrifice. For me, I think of all the Americans who have given their lives for us to have our freedom today and every day. I'm blessed to have fought alongside great Marines. They inspire me to live and learn more every day as I try to honor their memory. On behalf of all the service members killed during serving our country, I ask all Americans to honor their sacrifice, put country and community forward. Their sacrifice sustains America's enduring spirit of freedom, and every day we can be freedom at work. Thank you for your time today.